Hey, we're back in the garden this week on HGMM with another informative video by our gardener Kristopher from the Midwest Man Mountain channel. I think it's going to be fun watching his garden grow throughout this summer right from the very beginning. Make sure you subscribe to HGMM so you won't miss any of his videos. Important takeaway from this video: it gets cold in Wisconsin.
Hello friends, I'm Kristopher from the Midwest Man Mountain channel, and I believe that woodworking and gardening are two of the best ways to be sustainable, creative, and achieve a sense of purpose. That's why once a month you'll find me here on Home and Garden for Mere Mortals in my garden. Stay tuned. Every year I look forward to May to be able to plant my garden. Thanks to data collected over the years by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the American Horticultural Society, and gardeners in my area, I know relatively well when my last frost date is going to be and how well plants that I'm going to put in the ground will fare over winter and during the heat of the year. With that in mind, today I'm going to be taking you through some confusing maps regarding plant hardiness zones, heat zones, and last frost dates.
Plant hardiness zone maps, or gardening maps, like this one by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, reflect the average annual extreme minimum temperature, or how cold it gets, in short. The map is broken down into 13 different zones, each with two subcategories, ranging at the coldest of -60 to -55 to the warmest of 65 to 70 degrees for an average minimum temperature. Take a moment to identify the zone where you live, and if you decide to comment on this video, be sure to let me know what zone you live in. Data for this map was collected for 30 years between 1976 and 2005. This map itself was published in 2012, but there were two versions before, in 1990 and 1960. If you go back far enough, you can see how the climate has changed. Take Chicago for example. Right now Chicago is Zone 6, but it used to be Zone 5. It may not seem like much, but that's an increase in 10 degrees on average for an average minimum temperature. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into plant hardiness zones using my great state of Wisconsin as an example. I live in Oshkosh. Can you find it? There it is. Thanks to the lake air effect caused by Lake Winnebago, my winters are slightly warmer than my friends in La Crosse. My winters are about -20 to -15 degrees on average. Not too bad. For my garden, this means that anything that I plant in the ground, particularly perennials, must be able to survive winters of -15 to -20 degrees on average. This is why coconut trees don't do well in Wisconsin, but apple trees are terrific. When adding perennials to my garden, I take into consideration the zone in which the nursery resides. I'm adding some currants to my garden this spring that are coming from Waterloo, Wisconsin. Now Waterloo is in Zone 5A just like me, so it's not a problem. Likewise, I know it wouldn't be a problem if I added a plant from a nursery that was in a colder zone, say somewhere up by Howard. This is because that zone experiences even colder winters than mine, and if the plants are fine up there, I know they'll be fine by me, where the winter is maybe 10 or 15 degrees warmer on average. Whereas the plant hardiness zone maps can be seen as a measure for cold tolerance for plants, the plant heat zone map by the American Horticultural Society from the 1990s can be seen as a heat tolerance map for plants. Each zone represents a time period measuring average number of days per year that exceed 86 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius. Here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we're in Zone 4. That means we get 14 to 30 days where the temperature exceeds 86 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees centigrade. I take this into consideration when planting vegetables in my garden because the more days that the plants are exposed to temperatures greater than 86 degrees, the more likely they are to stop blooming, or to wilt, or to become susceptible to certain kinds of pests.
In the case of seeds, their packaging can be a treasure trove of information. For example, it's recommended that these tomatoes be started indoors 6 weeks prior to the last frost. But how are we supposed to know when the last frost is going to come?
It can be a hit or a miss if your plants are going to come with information about hardiness or heat zones, but it's almost always guaranteed that there'll be some sort of notification about average last frost date. This map is suggesting that my average last frost date is somewhere around May 15th. This is true, but you can dive down even deeper with a simple Google search. In this example, I typed in average last frost date into Google and I clicked on the first link. This took me to Dave's garden, where I entered my zip code, and it gave me information suggesting that my last frost date would be May 13th, and my growing season would last through September 20th, giving me approximately 160 good days of weather to work with.
And there you have it. What do you think about hardiness zones, heat zones, and last frost dates? I'd love to know how they've affected your planting in previous seasons. Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. While you're here, be sure to subscribe to Home and Garden for Mere Mortals, and then go check out my channel at The Midwest Man Mountain. I'll see you next month. Bye.